Simon DeBell from ABB. ABB is a global company, and during this morning's session there was just a brief mention of the importance of language learning as a way of understanding other cultures. Could you say something more about how you see language learning both at a secondary level and possibly even as a core subject at tertiary, please?
Right, thank you very much. One of my first experiences in arriving at the university in 2011 was that we had to cut the Chinese major because we had 3 students enrolled. And so the issue for us is critically building the particularly literacy around Asian languages, which was very much developed across the 80s and 90s and then fell away. So ensuring that we begin to build both in secondary education and then the, if you like, the minor Chinese language, which we have now got, which is building really substantially. So this is where a joined-up education system becomes critical, where the secondary and tertiary components of the system can move forwards. Very interestingly, we have a Confucius Institute, about which much is said. There are several of them across Australia, and they are very, very busy with community-based Chinese language courses. And they have boomed, both for members of the community who are in business, government organisations, and beginning to work through the stages of developing, in that case, Chinese literacy.
I'll just add to that in terms of it's critical when you look at the language that you need that we do look at that joined-up approach, because we are educating people so that they can go on to have jobs, to be productive, to contribute to economic development right across the country. And so given the fact that we are operating in a global economy, more and more, it doesn't matter whether you're a large business, a multinational corporate, or whether you are a small business, you are needing to operate globally, and the fact that language will be important, I think, needs to flow down for the way we're going to operate in the future.
Sue, I have a question for you, and it comes from one of the comments you made about recognition of TAFE qualifications across the states. How is it that we still haven't been able to solve that problem? The Minister was here talking about the way in which, and speaking about teacher training and so on, and commonwealth intervention in the schooling system and so on, and yet in TAFE, vocational education and training, we still have someone who was educated in New South Wales with a particular qualification, unable to have that qualification recognised and therefore to be licensed to practice, say, in Western Australia. What's the problem? I mean, I heard about this 25 years ago when I was here. What's going on?
Stephen, it's a frustration, I think, for a lot of people in this room. I know, Paul, you know from the national seamless economy that we had that was supposed to look at being able to align the states in terms of recognition. There were debates around, are we going to go for mutual recognition? What's the lowest common denominator? The states couldn't agree. You know, we've actually got to be able to move forward, come up with a decision and say, how are we actually going to treat this as one country, rather than have this fact that it completely stymies that mobility across the nation. It really stymies the development that we have in our skills and our training. It flows back to that. It's a frustration that goes across a whole range of different areas. Harmonisation is not easy, but we've got to find a way to just do it instead of just talking about it.
Well, do we need another champion in the government that... I thought the Minister said he was Minister for Training as well. Perhaps he's concentrating on other areas. Maybe he needs to focus here. Is that one solution?
Look, you've got to have someone that raises this as being a critical barrier to our growth and development. And in the regions, you know, where we have a third of our population that lives, it's something that really is an immense barrier.
Mm. I mean, we have up here, please. Thank you. Professor Maddock.
Thank you. On the whole issue of mutual recognition, it just seems too hard to get both people to agree to recognise each other's rules. When I was in the government, it always seemed to me the obvious thing to do for Victoria in our case was just to say, well, let's just recognise New South Wales rules in some things. We'll just accept it. We don't care whether they accept ours. Let's just accept theirs. And surely state governments can do this independently. Getting both sides to agree just requires really complicated negotiations. But having any one state agree to just accept the state next door's rules is a much simpler thing and the obvious way to get through this problem.
Look, I'd agree. We really do need to find a way that we can move that forward. There were just numerous ways that it got bogged down before. And look, Stephen, I'd put it to CEDA, have another go at this and look at what are some of those priorities. We can look in the context of skilling and education, because due to make a difference if we can get some movement in some of those areas.
I feel a cause coming on in CEDA. I have, certainly, Chairman, please. Paul McClintock.
Just a comment, because yes, I did have the job of monitoring that for some years, and don't give up, because some very good work was done, and you know, we marked the seamless economy progress for some years, and quite a few of those harmonisations did take place. So it can be done. But I'd also say that when the government went out at the time and actually asked for what Seamless 2 should look like and what were the real goals for the next round, business and the community were very slow to actually mobilise to bring to government the next round of reform. And I think there were people in finance who were running it at the time who were committed. So I think to some extent we all dropped the ball in this, and but there is still an appetite, I think, amongst the players. So it's worth running at again, but we'll have to do better than we did last time. But real progress was made. We shouldn't be too miserable.
Thank you. I think that's probably a good juncture to bring this morning session to a close.